Jean-Marc Nattier was a prominent French painter of the 18th century, best known for his refined and imaginative portraits of aristocratic women, frequently portrayed in allegorical or mythological guise. Working during the height of the Rococo period, Nattier developed a style that blended classical illusion with decorative charm, embodying the opulence and theatricality of Louis XV's court. His legacy is one of grace, beauty, and the clever synthesis of portraiture and classical idealism. Jean-Marc Nattier was born in Paris on March 17, 1685, into a family of artists. His father, Marc Nattier, was a portrait painter who served as an official painter to the king, while his mother, Marie Courtois, was a skilled miniaturist. This artistic environment provided Nattier with a strong foundation from an early age, nurturing his talents and encouraging his pursuit of painting. He began his formal artistic education under the guidance of his father and later enrolled at the prestigious Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture. Nattier's precocious abilities quickly drew attention. At the age of 15, he contributed drawings for a published engraving series based on Peter Paul Rubens's paintings, demonstrating both technical skill and a deep understanding of Baroque composition. In 1703, he won first prize at the Academy, a significant achievement that set the stage for his future career. Early in his career, Nattier aspired to become a history painter, the most esteemed genre within academic art. History painting involved grand narratives drawn from classical mythology, the Bible, or historical events, and it was seen as the pinnacle of intellectual and artistic achievement. His initial works reflected this ambition, showing a command of dramatic composition and mythological themes. In 1715, Nattier was invited to paint the portraits of the visiting Russian Tsar Peter the Great and his wife, Empress Catherine I. These works won him international recognition and offered a taste of courtly prestige. He was even invited to work in Russia, though he ultimately declined the offer, preferring to remain in France and pursue his artistic ambitions at home. However, circumstances beyond his control would alter the course of his career. The economic turmoil caused by the Mississippi Bubble in the early 1720s, a speculative financial crisis that devastated many French investors, left Nattier in financial hardship. As a result, he was forced to abandon the slow, demanding, and often underfunded world of history painting and instead focus on portraiture, which was more lucrative and in constant demand among the aristocracy. Nattier's shift to portraiture proved to be fortuitous. He found a unique niche in painting portraits that combined the realism of likeness with the idealism of allegory. Women of the French court, eager to fashion themselves as goddesses, muses, or classical heroines, flocked to Nattier's studio. He became especially famous for portraying his sitters as mythological figures: Venus, Diana, Hebe, or the Muses, dressed in flowing silks and adorned with symbolic props. One of his earliest and most celebrated works in this style is Mademoiselle de Clermont and Sultane, 1733, in which the sitter appears in exotic Turkish-inspired attire, reflecting the European fascination with Orientalism. The painting marked the beginning of Nattier's mature style, characterized by elegance, fantasy, and polished execution. Another celebrated example is Madame de Pompadour as Diana, which showcases the king's powerful mistress as the Roman goddess of the hunt. Here, Nattier masterfully balanced flattery and classical reference, painting the sitter with an air of grace and authority while reinforcing her cultivated image and political clout. Jean-Marc Nattier's painting style was quintessentially Rococo, graceful, light, and decorative. His color palette favored soft pastels, pale blues, creamy whites, rose pinks, and he employed these tones to enhance the sensuality and refinement of his subjects. Fabrics in his portraits seem almost tangible. Silk shimmers, lace is delicately rendered, and jewels gleam with careful highlights. Though he rarely explored deep psychological introspection in his portraits, Nattier excelled at conveying poise, elegance, and a sense of timeless beauty. His compositions were carefully arranged, his lighting subtle and flattering, and his brushwork both smooth and detailed. He gave equal attention to costume and setting, reinforcing the sitter's social status and cultural sophistication. Nattier's growing reputation led to widespread acclaim and official appointments. In 1718, he was accepted into the Royal Academy as a history painter. an ironic distinction given that portraiture would become his true legacy. His connections within the court continued to deepen, and by the 1740s, he was painting many of the most illustrious figures in France. In 1746, he was named Peintre du Roi, Painter to the King, a title that confirmed his position as one of the foremost portraitists of the era. He painted portraits of Queen Marie Leschinska, the daughters of Louis XV, and other members of the royal family, always combining realism with a polished sense of courtly decorum. Nattier's studio became a fashionable destination for the elite, who saw his portraits as a way to immortalize their grace and virtue under the guise of classical allegory. His works were frequently exhibited at the Salon, further solidifying his fame and influence. As artistic tastes shifted in the latter half of the 18th century, Nattier's style began to fall out of favor. The rise of neoclassicism, with its stricter lines, somber tones, and moral seriousness, stood in stark contrast to the playful elegance of Rococo. Younger painters, such as Jacques-Louis David, were beginning to redefine French art, and Nattier's allegorical portraits came to be seen as emblematic of a decadent and outdated aristocracy. By the 1750s, Nattier had largely retired from public life. He continued to paint occasionally, but no longer commanded the attention he once enjoyed. He died in Paris on November 7, 1766, at the age of 81, leaving behind a significant body of work that captured the ideals and illusions of a gilded age. Although his popularity waned after his death, Jean-Marc Nattier's work has enjoyed a resurgence of interest among art historians and collectors. His portraits are now seen as invaluable records of Rococo society, not only for their beauty, but for their insight into the cultural self-image of 18th century France. They offer a visual language of aristocratic identity, one that merges reality and fantasy, politics and performance. Today, Nattier's paintings can be found in major museums around the world, including the Louvre, the Palace of Versailles, and the Hermitage Museum. His ability to merge mythological idealism with personal likeness helped to transform portraiture into a richly expressive form and secured his place among the leading artists of the French Rococo.